Hello YouTube, it's good to see you guys. Today I'm going to show you guys how to lubricate a Taurus PT92 pistol. Here we go. Alright, so I like to take the spring pressure off, push the button, and pull straight down on the lever on the other side with your index finger. Once that's done, you can let go and just push it straight off. Be careful not to send your guide rod flying across the room. It's under spring pressure. You want to make sure you hold on to that. This has a unique locking system. It's not like all the striker fired pistols. This is not a striker fired pistol. So you just gotta push up. I want to push in and up. Alright guys, this is what I like to use to lubricate my pistols and my rifles. It's meant for firearms. That's something I suggest. Whether you like this one or not, make sure it's meant for firearms, because it needs to stand up to temperature. And you know, just use a lube that is meant for firearms. I like to apply break-free CLP with Q-tips. That's just me. Whether I'm cleaning or lubing, I like to use Q-tips. And I'm going to go ahead and get started, show you how it goes. I already went through my barrel with one of my favorite tools. I already went through the barrel with a bore snake. I made some videos of that. You can find that if you want to see how you go through a barrel with a bore snake. But that's what I recommend to clean the barrel. Just pull the bore snake through there 3 times, and that's more than enough. You can have a shiny, clean barrel. I'm going to go ahead and clean, you know, the outside of the barrel and everything else with some Q-tips. You can use break-free CLP. I suggest that you shake it up. You want to apply lubrication everywhere there's metal on metal. So in these channels here, the guide rails run. So I'm going to put some lube in there for the guide rails and the slide, not to wear down prematurely. You clean the firearm much in the same way that you lube it. So you can pretty much use this same technique for cleaning the firearm. I went ahead and did that before today, and now I'm just lubing. I tend to just dry clean the firearm with Q-tips and then lube it with a Q-tip. That's why it's still so dirty. But I mean, I figure it ends up more than clean enough doing it that way. So basically I went through this whole exercise that I'm doing now with dry Q-tips. And I cleaned out the inside of the barrel with a bore snake. And now I'm just lubing up the firearm. One thing I like about this type of design, this Taurus PT92 / Beretta 92 design, is that it retains the oil well. It retains the oil that you put in the gun well, which not all firearms do. And you know, the ones that don't retain the oil can kind of drive you crazy. But this gun, it's obvious to tell when you're at the range. When you're at the range, you know whether or not you lube this gun, because it looks wet well after you lubed it. But you can definitely tell that you lubed the firearm well after the fact. Also, even when you do the initial cleaning after the range, you notice there's still oil in there. So you know the firearm is being preserved as well as possible. But some firearms leave you wondering if you did right by it or not. You want to get in every nook and cranny. You don't want to do the bolt face. You want to leave the bolt face dry. But everything else, you want to reach in there. And definitely put some lube. I think a lot of time it's good to squeeze out the cotton a little bit, so you have a little bit extra out on the edge that you can push into the crevices. Now I'm going to go ahead and get some where the barrel goes. Definitely need to lube up where the barrel and the guide rod go, because the guide rod on this firearm is metal from the factory. I thought about putting a plastic one from Beretta in, but I don't think it's necessary. I'm not going to bother doing that. You know, it's funny, when you get a plastic one, you want a metal one. When you get a metal one, you think you want a plastic one when it comes to guide rods. But I'm just going to leave it be. I don't think any real wear goes on at that juncture at any rate. Especially so long as you lube it up like we're doing. That should be fine. What I'm using to absorb all the excess oil is just old t-shirts. These are simply undershirts. Sometimes for larger firearms like rifles, I actually like to use the undershirts themselves to wipe up all the carbon. On this particular firearm, I like to put some lube on the edge and in that slot, because you do get metal on metal contact there. You know, with firearms, it's just a general principle when lubing, anywhere there's metal on metal contact, you want to go ahead and put some lube. Also, if you're not sure, just take a look and see if there's wear. If you see wear, there's metal on metal contact, go ahead and put some oil on it. You know, when in doubt, just look for wear, and that'll tell you the story. That'll tell you, you know, it needs a little bit of oil over here. You know, and you can see that mark there from the wear. So I want to get the slot as well. Back of the firing pin as well. I'm going to go ahead and try the slot one more time just to make sure I got in there good. Alright, so I'm done with the slide. Lord knows there's plenty of oil there. The barrel, you do not want to put oil inside the barrel. Not on any firearm do you want to oil the barrel. You want to leave the barrel dry on the inside, always. This particular gun, you want to put plenty of lube because you have this locking block here. So you want to make sure that that whole mechanism is well lubricated. The locking block, as far as I'm concerned, I just spray straight in there. Go ahead and spread out the lube. Beretta style designs like this Taurus PT92, the barrel itself doesn't take a whole lot of wear on the outside because it's actually it's a fixed style barrel. The barrel does not tilt. It's not a Browning tilt design, so it doesn't tilt, and it doesn't take a whole lot of wear, but I like to lube it up anyway, just like any other barrel. You definitely need to lube the locking block at any rate. You might want to work the locking block just to make sure there's lube getting in on everything. Plenty of lube everywhere, no problemo. Spreading it out. Good and well. Got plenty of lube on my hands. Some people prefer to wear gloves. They figure this petroleum-based stuff ain't good for you. I haven't worried about that a whole lot myself. There's all plenty lubed. If you really want to be thorough, you can do the recoil spring as well. I'm about to go wash my hands real quick and move on to the frame itself, where I'm definitely going to make sure the guide rails are well lubricated. Definitely got to make sure of that. The guide rails, you know, top, bottom, outside, all over the guide rails, you want lubrication, because there's a lot of metal on metal contact there, and there's going to be wear over time, so you want to make sure it's lubricated to extend the life of your firearm as much as possible. You also want to lubricate the ejector, the hammer, and anywhere you figure there might be some metal to metal contact, you can go ahead and put on some lube. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and try to extend the tip of the cotton a little bit so that I can reach into crevices a little deeper. For now, I'm going under, just because I have a good shape Q-tip at the moment. Not all of them are equally as good for going underneath, so I'm going to go underneath the rail with this one. Do the outside portion. I'm going to go ahead and use the other side. Let's make sure I get plenty of lube on these rails to do the top portion. Top and the inside. That's where your locking block is going to go. So you definitely want to make sure that gets lubed. Opinions vary on whether or not you want to lubricate the feed ramp where the bullets go. Personally, I don't do that. I don't recommend it personally. Some people do it. I wouldn't do it. You definitely want to make sure it's clean. I would not lubricate it. I would clean it and make sure it's dry. It's my recommendation for the feed ramp. I feel compelled to lubricate in here. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of friction there. Probably zero, but I feel compelled to go ahead and lubricate there. I tend to do that on my firearms. I just realized there's a channel in there for your, on the frame, there's actually a channel on the inside under where your guide rails go. There's a channel for your fixed barrel that actually has a a rail for that. So now I'm going to try and make sure I lubricate in there. I haven't been doing Berettas very long. I started out with striker fired pistols. Back when I started out with that, that's what all the law enforcement guys were running with, and for one reason or another, that's what I kind of went with. You know, whatever the cops are doing, you know, to the civilian newbie, that's what it sounds like is the hot ticket. And you know, I definitely can't complain about my Glock 17, but you know, that's why this platform is new to me. Back in the day when I got into all this, the Glock was you know, really popular with law enforcement, and that's kind of what I figured. You know, if they can bet their lives on it day in and day out, you know, it might not be such a bad thing for me to have to bet my life on, if it ever comes to that, God forbid. Go ahead and get this thing here that I don't even know what it is that seems to go in a channel on the slide. I'm going to do the ejector. Go ahead and do both sides of the ejector, as well as the top and bottom of the ejector. Okay, looks like we've got it all. Now due to the wear patterns on this firearm, I'm going to go ahead and do something I don't really do. I'm going to lubricate. I'm going to try and leave the feed ramp as dry as possible, but it looks like there's some wear there, so I'm going to go ahead and go across the top, but not quite onto the feed ramp, and lube it up. We've done it all. Now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to dry off the hammer because it had some old lube on it. And the last thing I'm going to lube up is that hammer right now. And we are done. Ready for reassembly. Lubing up the hammer. Plenty of wear on the hammer. When we did the slide, we did the back of the firing pin. So now all that's left is reassembly. On the Taurus PT92 and Beretta style firearm, you have to, since it's an open slide design, you have to look for the spot for the, you know, make sure you hook the front as you put the barrel in. Push here on the back. No, I was wrong there. I want to push down. There we go, perfect. In order to put your guide rod in, I have to make sure this thing goes down. So just play with it until you get it to do what you need it to do. Perfect, it's down. Now I can proceed to put in my recoil spring and guide rod. The guide rod, when you're done putting it in, it should be parallel with the barrel and parallel with the slide. There's a tiny little pocket there for you to catch. So there you go. Make sure it's centered. Now all that's left, match them up. You're going to need a little bit of resistance. Be gentle. Don't beat it up. There you go. If you're going to meet resistance a couple times, just, be gentle, be patient. What I like to do, you're going to have to take off the spring pressure by pulling back and then push up your locker and give it a function check. So this is how I like to do that. Push up. I should be locked. Perfect. That's how you take down, lubricate, and reassemble your Taurus PT92 pistol.